Hey, what's up, Dream Think Doer? Welcome to episode 466. I'm Mitch Matthews. So glad you are here because I'm going to introduce you to a new word. It's a new concept. I would even say it's a school of thought, and it's been a real game changer for me. I have been introducing it to my success coaching clients, and they have been loving it. It's giving them perspective. It's giving them hope. It's helping them to break through, especially for some of the folks that I work with that are high achievers, executives, leaders, entrepreneurs that are kind of at the top of their organization. And lately, some of them have just been feeling stuck. They've been killing it at work, but it just kind of the options that are in front of them, they're not as excited about. And this idea has really helped to open up possibilities. And I don't know if you can relate to that or not. I am sure if you're a dream think doer, you're a rock star, you're a high achiever, you're somebody who gets things done. But those folks can kind of get stuck sometimes, not because you're not achieving, not because you're not working hard. It's just one of those things that sometimes it's hard to get excited about some of the options that are in front of you. And today, this word, this concept, this school of thought is going to help to open up possibilities, because as my clients have heard about it, they've let me know, it's like, well, once you see this word, once you understand this word, you can't unsee it. It just changes things. And that's why I'm excited to get it to you today, because I think it might open up some possibilities. It might even help you to think of some new goals, to kind of look at your future differently, with more hope, with more enthusiasm, with more excitement, all those things. I'm not going to overhype it too much, but I am fully caffeinated, my friend, and I am excited about this idea. So we're going to start diving into it, because I want you to feel the possibilities. I want you to feel the hope. I want you to feel some freedom. So get excited. I don't think there's any accident that you are listening to this episode today. And I'm going to introduce you to this new word in a second. I'm going to make you hold for just a second, because I want to ask, like, what would it feel like to have more options in your life? Maybe options in your work, in kind of life itself, right? Like, let's just pause for a second. I know there's a good chance everything in your life's probably solid, good. You're a dream think doer. You're getting stuff done. So you probably like your work. You probably love your family very much. You're probably very grateful for where you're at. There's a good chance nothing in your life is necessarily on fire. Nothing needs to blow up, but maybe having some more options might be kind of nice, right? What could it mean for you to, maybe it's travel more, or being able to say yes to more things you actually want to do, or say no to some things, and be guilt-free about that. Maybe take some time off. Maybe it's starting something, writing something, teaching something, helping somebody. Maybe it's changing careers, or maybe it's staying exactly where you are, but knowing you're doing that by choice, not because you have to. That's what I'm excited about for you, because I want to introduce this new favorite word. Are you ready for it? Have I been hyping it enough? Are you excited? Are you leaning in to your speakers right now? Did you just push your earbuds in a little deeper? All right. My new favorite word is something called optionality. Optionality. And when you dive into it, once I heard this, I was like, wait, what is that? What does that mean? And when you boil the word optionality down, it basically means the intentional creation of more options. I'll say it again. Optionality is the intentional creation of more options. It's not waiting for options. It's not hoping options appear. It's not waiting for somebody to pick you. It's not waiting for permission. It's intentionally creating options. Are you interested? Are you intrigued? I know the minute I heard that word, I'm like, I want more of that. right? It actually made me ask myself, like, what am I building today that gives me more options tomorrow? I want more optionality in my life. And maybe I'd ask you that same question. What are you building today, big or small, that might give you more options tomorrow? All right. Now, don't worry. We are going to get tactical. We are going to get very practical. This is Dream, Think, Do. I've got you. Right. But this is powerful stuff. Right. I don't know about you, but I love the author, Seth Godin. And one of my favorite quotes from Seth is, reject the tyranny of being picked. Pick yourself. Because when you think about it, how much of life do we spend kind of waiting to be picked for something? Maybe it's waiting to be picked for that job or for that promotion or that opportunity, or somebody giving us permission to do something or to recognize something, or for somebody maybe to even notice what you've been doing, or for somebody to decide that you're ready, right? Seth is saying, hey, reject the tyranny of being picked. Create opportunities so that you can pick yourself, right? Now, here, before we get too deep into this, I do want to throw out a key distinction here. I am not talking about this. Optionality doesn't mean quitting your job, right? Or changing your career immediately, or moving to Fiji. By the way, if you want to move to Fiji, go for it. That's great. But like, that's not what we're talking about here. It's not about burning down your life and starting from scratch. What we're talking about here is really participating in creating your own future. That's it. It's not burning down your life, quitting everything, walking away. It's getting intentional with creating a future that you want. And we're going to do that through a discussion on the idea and the word optionality. Okay. Now, also another clarifier, because I'm all about clarifying things here. Another clarifier is, we're not trying to create 847 different choices, right? Choices can be brutal. Too many choices, especially. I was reminded recently, my wife Melissa and I went to the Cheesecake Factory. I know some of you probably love the Cheesecake Factory. Some of you maybe don't. I know there's some hate for Cheesecake Factory from time to time, but I like the Cheesecake Factory. I might even say I love the Cheesecake Factory. But I'll, if you've ever been to Cheesecake Factory, when they come to your table, they lay down this book. It's a menu, but it's a book. And there are what seems like thousands of choices to be made. Now, I will say that at least 250 to 300 of them are, in fact, cheesecake. But I would say they're dangerously close on bordering on too many choices. And that's not what we're talking about here. What we are talking about is generating options, meaningful options, options that fit you where you are, that align with your values, that support your priorities, that give you a sense of greater freedom, that fit the life that you want to create. But this doesn't happen by accident, right? And by the way, the goal is not more choices. The goal is greater freedom to choose. Okay? I'll say that again. Our goal with this conversation is to not create more choices for you. The goal is to create more freedom for you so that you can choose the options that you want. This is really important, right? Now, optionality, I'll also say, is not about fear. The school of thought of optionality, as I would teach it, is not about fear. Okay. Sometimes when people talk about these kinds of subjects, they lay a foundation of fear, like worry about everything. The world is going to hell in a handbasket. It's all over, people, all those things, right? That's not what optionality in this conversation is about. Optionality is about hope. Optionality is about intentionality. Optionality is about controlling what you can control. It's about being proactive rather than being reactive. And we don't create optionality because we're expecting something to go wrong. We create optionality because we want more things to go right. I'll say that again. We create optionality in our lives because we want more ways for things to go right. That's optionality at its best. Don't you want more things, more ways for things to go right? That's what I'm talking about, right? So here's the deal today. We're going to go deep. We've been talking a little bit about optionality, what it is, maybe even why it matters. We're going to talk about the 3 success paradoxes that we have to navigate as we step into optionality. These are important. I think that a lot of people misunderstand these paradoxes that come with success. But once you see them, you'll be able to break through them and navigate them. We're going to talk about why you might want more optionality, but also more importantly, how do you create it? And then we'll get you some specific experiments so you can start doing this immediately. This is not some far off thing. This is not some big esoteric concept that can't be applied immediately. We're going to get you some experiments that you can start to use immediately. And again, this is not about blowing up your current life. This is about intentionally creating more possibilities within it. And who doesn't want more possibilities, right? That's what I want for you. As you listen to Dream, Think, Do, that's what I want for you, okay? Now think about it. As we're starting to dive into this, think about where some meaningful optionality could change some things for you. Maybe it might open up some possibilities in your career, or maybe income, or time, or impact, or your family and relationships, where you live, something you want to create, something that you want to experience, right? Now, here's the deal. You don't have to solve this yet, but just maybe even give yourself a little space to think about where some maybe just a little bit more meaningful optionality could have an impact for you. Can you feel it? All right. Now, I want to get you to optionality, but before we go there, we have to talk about what we've labeled as 3 success paradoxes. And full disclosure, I'm like, I don't know that I've ever talked about plural paradoxes. So I had to look it up. I'm like, is it paradoxi? Paradox? Like, is there some special word? But it's just paradoxes. That's the plural for paradox. But we've got 3 of them. And I think this is really important because what's interesting about success, and I know you're a dream, think, doer, so there's a good chance you've experienced success. You might be in the middle of some success, but there's some weird things that go on with success, especially when you're working towards creating more optionality in your life. Paradox number 1 is that we tend to assume that more success gives us more options. But here's the paradox. More success actually often creates fewer perceived options. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. Many of you know that before I got into being a coach and a speaker and helping other coaches and speakers, all those things, I had a career in the pharmaceutical industry. And with that, it was a good fit when I got into the industry. It was a high science sell. It was very relational. It just was a good fit for me. And I really succeeded. And early in my career, I went up the ladders quickly. There were a lot of possible rungs. I started to really, be able to move in a number of different areas. There was a lot of opportunities to move up through the ranks in the sales force. And then I was really kind of presented with a host of opportunities. I could go into marketing. I could go into training. I could go into a lot of different things, even the kind of legal and the ethics side and management. There was a lot of possible options. And as I kept growing, and climbing, and I got to be more successful, I also started to get more specialized. I went kind of into the training route, right? And I started to get more responsibility. I started to get more experience. I started to get more income, all those things. But as I moved up the ladder, what was interesting is that those rungs started to get further and further apart. There were fewer options. There were fewer obvious places to go. And I found that too, as I came into the company I was with a group of people, and we kind of all experienced that we kind of raced up to the ladder. But once we got to a certain point, the opportunities, they really started to spread out. Those rungs on that ladder really got further and further apart. And really, we started to look at those options ahead, and fewer of them, the opportunities popped up fewer, less often, but also a lot of the opportunities we didn't want to have, right? So it was harder to imagine, kind of what was next. But it was also because we'd had success, we'd had some notoriety, we'd had these experiences. It became harder and harder to imagine doing something differently. And so that was kind of a paradox, is that I thought as I moved up that ladder, as I had more success, I would have more options. But actually, the reverse started to happen. I started to have, or feel like I was having, fewer and fewer options. And this awareness is important, because sometimes the very thing that makes us successful can be the very thing that also makes our world start to feel smaller. Like we have fewer options. And that's kind of an important thing to recognize, right? Now, paradox number 2 is success has gravity. Success has gravity. What I mean by that is the longer you're successful at something, the more your experience becomes specialized. You maybe start to get a little reputation for what you do. People know you for it. Maybe even your compensation reflects it. Your lifestyle may adjust to it, right? Other people start expecting you to be who you've been, all those things. And you maybe even start to expect that from yourself, right? And changing directions or doing something new can feel really expensive, right? Not just financially, but like to your identity or to your status or the sense of certainty that you live in, or your reputation or comfort or momentum. Making a change or new options might feel expensive. And here's the thing, it's not bad, right? Like, here's the thing, is like, it's not bad to have these thoughts, right? But what we have to do is we have to recognize that those things start to come up. They start to bubble up as we start to explore creating some intentional optionality, to actually give yourself choices, options, to open up possibilities, right? You start to feel a little bit of this tension of your current success has a gravitational pull. So just know that that's one thing to be aware of. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just something to be aware of. Now, success paradox number 3 is that success often gives you something to protect. Okay. So what I mean by that is, like, you've worked hard to have the success that you've achieved currently. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But here's the deal. At some point, what's interesting is, especially as you have experience within an organization or you have experience within an industry, there's a very good chance that when you started, you kind of ask yourself, like, what could I do? What are the possibilities? But the more success you have, oftentimes it feels like there's less options. And so you start moving from the what could I do, or the kind of what if, to what's my next move from here, right? And here's the thing, those kind of sound similar, but they're not, because sometimes it's easy to stop exploring possibilities. It's easy to stop creating options, and we just start to evaluate vacancies. honestly, that's kind of where I was at within the pharmaceutical industry. As I started to move up that ladder, the rungs were spreading out. And as I started to look at what was next, what was kind of that next rung, what made sense, what were my friends, my peers elevating to next, I started to look at those vacancies and I wasn't quite sure whether that was what I wanted, right? Another way to say this is you stop asking, what could I do? And you start asking, what's available, right? I don't know about you, but I like to have options. And what if your next option wasn't another rung on the ladder? Now, don't get me wrong, like a promotion's great, a bigger title's great, a bigger organization or something exciting, bigger responsibility, bigger paycheck, all those things, those can be great. But here's the thing is, what if you had some options? And I'm not just talking about your career, I'm talking about life here. And there could be things that, might exist within your current organization and what you're doing or your current industry, all those things. Or it might be just adding some things, adding some options to your life that go along with, they're kind of adjacent to your current career track, your current life, or they might be complementary to what you're currently doing, right? But what if you had some things that you could explore, that you could experiment with, that you could build, that you could learn, that you could create? What if? What if you had something that lit your freaking fire again? Because I have no doubt you're getting stuff done, right? You're delivering, you're bringing excellence right where you're at. But have you been on fire lately? Have you been excited about what you're doing? Have you been wanting to like just dive in and dig in and build or create or do something new, right? Without abandoning what you're already doing or what's already working. What if you had something new to step into? And here's the thing, optionality tends to expand the landscape. This is something I talk about with my clients all the time, right? Instead of just asking kind of what's the next possible promotion or what's your next job, it starts to allow you to ask, what other meaningful possibilities could I intentionally begin creating? What other meaningful possibilities could I intentionally begin creating? Maybe it's a new skill. Maybe it's creating some financial margin. Maybe it's getting to do a passion project. Maybe it's understanding the season you're in or the season you're moving into. Maybe it's experiencing a new community of some kind or a new source, a new income or revenue stream. Maybe it's something you teach or you create. Maybe it's something totally new, right? You don't have to abandon the path that you're on to create optionality. It's just one of those things that when people start to have more optionality in their life, that fire starts to really ignite. And here's the deal. That's what I want for you. And I don't want to just talk about it as this big 30,000 foot idea. I want to make this practical. I want you to be able to start creating more options, intentionally create more optionality in your life. So let's talk about some practical ways to do it. Because so far we've talked about what optionality is, why it matters. We've talked about the success paradoxes, those things we have to navigate. But let's talk about how do we get more optionality. And again, I really want to reinforce, we're not talking about changing your whole life, right? And I also don't want to say, this is your 5-year plan. I don't know about you, but I think a lot of people wrestle with that. Well, if I'm going to dream, if I'm going to do these kinds of things, then I must have a 5-year plan. And that can be really overwhelming. Don't get me wrong. It's good to dream big, but when it comes to optionality, and especially this conversation, I want you to actually think smaller. All right. That might surprise you because we talk about dreaming big all the time. But in this case, I want you to think about what's maybe one additional meaningful option that would just give you a little bit more freedom through creating some optionality. right? To be able to say, hey, I don't have to change everything. I don't have to blow up my life, but just have a little dose of optionality. Okay. And in order to get there, what I want to do is I want to introduce you to what we call the 5X elements of optionality. 5X elements. And that is, these are 5 elements plus an X that really do kind of create us, they're buckets for us when we're thinking about creating more optionality in your life. Those 5 elements are time, money, impact, identity, location, and then the X is what we call the X factor. And what's interesting is when you're intentionally creating optionality in your life, whether it's time, money, impact, identity, location, there's also this X factor that can happen, which is really cool things that you had no idea were even out there, right? Things you couldn't even dream of or imagine. That's the X factor. So let's talk about the 5 elements, all right? And what could be some practical experiments that you could take to create some options within each of these elements. Let's start with time, because that's a big one, especially for successful people. Most people feel like they don't have a lot of spare time. And what would it feel like? What would it be like to have more options when it comes to where you spend your time? What if you had more control over your calendar? Or what if you were able to work a 4-day week? Now, I know some of you might be like, oh, that's impossible. I couldn't do that. We've actually had people step out into this intentionally and wind up creating a 4-day week. Maybe it could mean more time with your family, or more room to travel, or space for a passion project. Maybe it's the ability to take a real sabbatical. Maybe it could mean fewer meetings. How great would that be, right? Fewer meetings, or more deep work, more time to really be focused. That's what I'm talking about. Think about that. Or maybe more control over when you work, right? And what's beautiful about this, especially as I've been working with my coaching clients on this, is it's not necessarily people wanting to work less. It's just people want to have greater choice. They want to have more options about what gets their best hours, what gets their best time, their best focus. So let me ask you this. What would you do if you had greater control over just 5 to 10% of your week? We're not talking a whole calendar overhaul here. We're just talking about what would it feel like? What would it be like if you had just greater control over 5 to 10% of your week, right? And here's the thing. With each of these elements, we're just going to give you one example of an experiment that you could take. So in this case, it might be, what if you did a 30-day experiment with time blocking? You don't have to do it forever, but what if you did a deep dive on time blocking? And I'll put in our show notes a episode, Dream Think Do episode that we did on time blocking. Been a game changer for a lot of people. And I want to encourage you, again, don't think I'm going to do this forever and ever and ever, but just do it for a month, do it for 30 days, and just see where it takes you. See what kind of options open up when you have better control over your time. And here's the thing, time freedom isn't always having more time. It's just having more say over your time. That's true time freedom. Okay. Now that's the time element. Let's talk about the money element. Now, here's the deal. Some of you love talking about money. Some of you don't, right? But here's the thing is, when it comes to optionality, what's beautiful is that this can also create some freedom. And it's that this is not kind of like, what would happen if your job disappeared, right? But it's like, all right, what could happen if you had something like an additional source of income, right? I'm an entrepreneur. One of the things we tried to instill in our boys is that thing of, if they wanted something, it's like, all right, what can I do to make some money to do that, to make it happen, right? And it's that thing of being able to explore additional forms of revenue, different ways to make money, options, right? Giving you options. That's what we're talking about here. And what would you do with a little more money, right? Maybe it's put more in savings, or you travel more. Maybe it's pay off your college or your kids' college. Maybe it's you give more. Maybe it's retirement. Maybe it's like taking a calculated risk. If you had a little bit elbow room, you'd be able to actually take a risk that you wanted to, or maybe be able to say no to something you want to stop doing, or maybe working differently, right? Or maybe you'd sleep better. Maybe if there was a little more money coming in, right? And this isn't about necessarily becoming insanely wealthy. Like, I'm not promising mansions and Maseratis, but it is interesting when you learn from people who have created more revenue, more income, more money, right? They've explored their options. And what's often interesting about this is those folks create more margin and they give themselves more options, right? And some additional income, it isn't valuable just because of what you can buy. It's more valuable because of what you can choose, more valuable because of the options that it could create. So here's the thing that's beautiful about this is I don't know what your comfort level is with the money element, but I want to encourage you, if you pick this one, and by the way, with the different elements, I'm not going to say you do all five. I'm going to say explore one. Give yourself permission to explore one for 30 days. And with the money element, right? It's just giving yourself 30 days to explore one potential way to increase your financial optionality. Maybe it's studying real estate and giving yourself permission to do a deep dive. Maybe it's studying a specific type of investing. Maybe it's you've always been curious about Bitcoin, but you've never really let given yourself permission to go down that rabbit hole. What if you just gave yourself 30 days to do it? Or maybe you did an experiment of 30 days to reduce one reoccurring expense, or 30 days to raise $1,000. I know I had Adam Carroll, one of my great friends. One of the times we were on, one of the times he was on Dream Think Do, we talked about how could you make $1,000 in 30 days? And what if you did that as an experiment, or you did it with your family to say, all right, let's just figure out a way to make $1,000 in 30 days, right? Or maybe it's exploring additional income streams. Where could it take you? Those kinds of experiments. And again, the goal here isn't like to buy an investment property in 30 days. That's not the goal. The goal is at the end of 30 days, you just want to understand one possibility better than you did when you started, right? Like you can even write this down as a goal to say at the end of the 30 days, I want to understand one option better than I do today. And you write the date in and just give yourself 30 days to explore that idea. All right. That's the money element. Now let's talk about the impact element, because this is really important, because there is probably a people group or a type of person that you love to help, that you want to have impact on, that you would love to lean in and really encourage them, help them, all those things, right? And there's a good chance that your current role may not allow you to do that. If it does, fantastic. Maybe there's a different group or, a different type of person that you want to have an impact on, right? Think about that. And maybe it's through your leadership, or maybe you've got some experience that the world could really benefit from, maybe from parenting, or maybe you face some adversity and the world could really be learning from you, or maybe you're really good at building teams, or maybe you're really good at navigating relationships, or maybe you're really good at helping people figure out their career or business strategy, or maybe for you it's faith, maybe it's faith-based, maybe it's something that is so deep within you and you just love to help other people navigate their faith journey, right? Maybe it's just a problem that you've solved and you've done it repeatedly, right? And you might think, I'd love to help people with this. I'd love to do that someday. But maybe simply when you think about optionality, maybe it's simply exploring another avenue for contribution or impact, a way to help that group, teach that group, encourage that group, And here's the thing is, when it comes to impact, sometimes optionality isn't about doing less of what you're doing. It's about having room to do more about what matters to you, right? To do more with people that matter to you. That's what optionality is. And to think about, all right, what's one small but significant thing that you could do in the next 30 days to have an impact on a group of people that means something to you? Is it teaching something? Is it reaching out and encouraging? Is it having a conversation with somebody? Is it writing a chapter in your future book? What might be 30 days of experimenting on the impact front? Now let's talk about identity, because identity is one of our core elements here, and it's wildly important, but it's kind of sneaky, because creating optionality around your identity, it goes beyond your current title. Your identity, the identity element of optionality, it is related to what you're currently doing and maybe your current title, but it goes so far beyond that. I know with a lot of my coaching clients, we'll talk about your identity. And oftentimes when we do that, they'll say, if I ask them, like, when you think about your identity, how would you describe your identity? And I'll often hear titles like I'm a CEO, or I'm an attorney, or I'm a physician, or I'm a VP of sales. I'm the person who does fill in the blank. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being proud of that. But that's not your identity, because if your title changed tomorrow, right, what would still be true about you? There's a good chance your wisdom, your character, relationships, your experience, the way you're curious, the way you solve problems, your ability to lead, your ability to contribute, those things, those are truly a part of your identity, and those have nothing to do with your title. Of course, they can be related to, and maybe your title helps you to do more of those things or walk in your identity more. But your role, right? Your identity, your role is something you do, but it doesn't contain everything that you are. So when it comes to optionality and your identity, a 30-day experiment could be to deliberately invest in something that has nothing to do with your professional title. Yeah, that one might be a little offensive, but this one is so fun. My coaching clients freaking love this when we do this, right? It's a 30-day experiment, deliberately investing in something that has nothing to do with your professional title. Maybe it means learning something new or creating something new, getting back to an old hobby, or trying something new, giving yourself permission to be a novice at something. Maybe it's joining a group or taking a class or reconnecting with something or someone that you've loved before that's totally different than your career, right? That could be just, again, a way to learn something that you've never learned or experienced before, or see something in a new light. This is a really powerful thing for a lot of my coaching clients, because they start to realize, like, oh, wow, my identity transfers, right? I get to experience these new things. One of my coaching clients just started taking Tai Chi, and she's a successful attorney out on the West Coast, and kind of poo-pooed Tai Chi. Interestingly enough, she's been very adventurous and all those things. But she's like, you know what? I've always been curious about Tai Chi. And so she gave herself 30 days to just do it. First, she did it via YouTube videos, and then she actually found a school, and it has been huge for her. And it's interesting because, she's not a Tai Chi master. I don't know. Do they do belts in Tai Chi? Is there a black belt? I don't think they have belts. Anyway, she's not like a black belt in Tai Chi or whatever that, or a Tai Chi ninja. But even in 30 days, she breathes differently. And she had no, like, this was about creating options for her. There was no direct correlation to her work as an attorney. But she said even in 30 days, she started to feel some change there. It's actually had even a positive impact on her day job. right? So when it comes to your identity, asking like, what's something in you that you'd like to experiment with that, it has nothing to do with the title on your business card. What's something you just want to give yourself permission to try something out, to be a novice, to not be good at something, and just explore it and see where it takes you. Get yourself a new experience on that front. Okay, now we're going to talk about location element. This one's a fun one. This one may or may not have been on your radar, but this one is a huge one because the location element, just exploring options when it comes to location. This is one of those where a lot of people are like, I own my home or my work, I got to do it here, those kinds of things. But what if you were able to just give yourself a little permission to dream on this front? What if you were able to say, all right, what if I worked remotely? Or what if I spent part of the year somewhere else? Or what if I lived closer to family or spent time or was able to spend time with family more? Or whatever, I was able to travel longer stretches or take summers and do something different with them or schedule around something important or work intensely for some seasons and then get to pull back in others, right? What if your work didn't dictate where and when quite as much? What might you be able to choose to do differently, right? And this is not, not going to try to turn you into a digital nomad, although that might be a possibility. I'll give you an example. We got some Dream Think Doers, my buddy Travis, who's actually even been on the podcast. They've been doing this. They gave themselves some optionality on this years ago and started to travel a little bit. And at first was a tent on the top of their Forerunner, and then it turned into a little camper that they could pull behind it. And it's continued to graduate. They continue to do experiments, continue to try different things. And then recently they've expanded out, gotten, a little bit nicer, Airstream to pull behind the vehicle, all those things. And now they're working remotely for extended periods of time. That's the kind of thing, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens through experiments and trying different things and exploring different things. Because some of these experiments, you may realize you don't like it. But like with Travis and his amazing wife, Tiffany, they realized they really enjoyed it and they had to kind of figure out how to make it work. But that's absolutely what they're doing. In fact, they might be even listening to this episode while they're on the road. So with experimenting, maybe it's just giving yourself a 30-day to say, what if? And maybe even try to even take a couple of hours to work in a different setting or in a different way and just explore to see how it works. Try 2 hours a week for 30 days and just see what happens. All right. Now, that's our last of the official elements, but I do have to speak to, we've said it's 5 X elements, and the X factor is truly those things that happen when you start to explore optionality and doors start to open they couldn't even imagine, things that you couldn't foresee happening. But as you started to create optionality, it's amazing. Sometimes there's some surprising doors that open. I'll give you an example. You guys know I've talked about my Authority Bridge coaching clients. Those are executives and leaders and entrepreneurs that want to use their authority, the things that they've learned, their experience, and not burn down their life, but actually start something new. And they start to coach and speak on the side of what they're doing. And some of it do it for additional impact. Some really enjoy additional income, all those things. It's optionality personified. But one of my Authority Bridge clients, he was doing just that. He stayed in his current role as a leader within his organization, but he started to teach more on the things that he'd learned. And what's interesting is he started to get paid for those things and really enjoyed it. But his organization started to see him in a different light. They knew he was a good leader, but all of a sudden they started to see other people really paying attention to the things he was teaching, the things he was sharing. And an X factor example was that a board position opened within his organization and they actually tapped him for it. And he would have never even thought that was a possibility. And I don't know that they necessarily had seen him in that light. I don't know if it would have been a possibility if he hadn't stepped out in the Authority Bridge process and started to teach from his experience. And what's great about it is it's a great opportunity for him. It's a perfect thing for the organization, but it's also an additional revenue stream for my client. And it's a total X factor. He is having a great time with it. It's a stretch. It's exciting. And it's not something that was even anywhere on his radar. But that's the beauty of optionality. When you intentionally start to step into creating options, some of those options might be way beyond what you could hope, dream, or imagine. So we talked about the 5 elements, the 5X elements. Where would you love to create some optionality? We talked about time, money, impact, identity, location, and maybe the X factor. Where would you like, when you hear about those things, where would you like to create some optionality? And like I said before, I don't want you to try to do all of them, right? We've covered a lot. And here's the thing. I don't want you leaving this episode trying to create optionality everywhere. When you think about the 5X elements, I just want you to pick one. For this episode, just pick one. I don't want you to ask, what do I need to change? What do I need to change? I want to encourage you to ask, what could I begin creating now? Right? Not blowing up your whole life. It's just creating more optionality for your future. So what's one move? What's one experiment? What's one thing you could do in the next 7 days that might start to create more optionality later? You don't even have to know for sure what kind of optionality it's going to create, what kind of options it's going to make available. It's just the intentional step into experimenting, creating, trying something new. The natural fruit of that is optionality, right? Now, some examples could be simply have a conversation. Think of somebody that inspires you or somebody that you're curious about. Have a conversation. Or maybe, with the time, maybe it's not time blocking for 30 days. Maybe it's just, I'm going to protect an hour. I know for some of my leaders, they don't even feel like they have an hour to protect. Maybe it's just protecting an hour, or maybe it's just saving a little bit of money or researching something, giving yourself permission to just take an hour and research something intentionally, reaching out or learning something new or writing something or trying something or teaching something, right? Maybe it's saying yes to something, or maybe it's saying no to something. What's one move that you can make in the next 7 days to create more optionality? And just to be clear, it doesn't have to produce optionality this week. It needs to just simply start planting seeds of optionality, right? And don't try to predict whether this will change your life forever. That is not the assignment. It's just saying, all right, what am I building today that might give me more options tomorrow? And you don't have to make a big announcement about it. Maybe you invite a friend into it. Maybe your significant other, your spouse, to say, hey, what if you talk to your family and say, let's create some optionality in our lives, right? And, this is dream think do. So to be able to say, all right, to dream about where would greater optionality make your life better? Think about the elements: time, money, impact, identity, location, right? Maybe it's thinking about what's some meaningful options that you would love to create. And then the doing, that's probably the most important, is what's one move that you can make in the next 7 days to start planting those seeds. And remember the X factor, right? Stay open to the good stuff that maybe you couldn't have even predicted, right? Okay, now before we wrap up, I do want to give a specific group of people a particular experiment, something you could try. And it actually is kind of a gift, right? There's a good chance that some of you, as you thought about impact, as you thought about income, as you thought about location, right? All those things, maybe something started to stir in you. maybe you're really good at what you do, or you've learned some things, or you love to help others, or there's a particular group of people that you love to teach or coach or encourage. I want to get you a special gift that will actually make for a pretty freaking awesome experiment in optionality. And this isn't for everybody, but if you've got a passion for helping others, especially around maybe coaching or speaking or consulting, maybe you've dreamed of writing a book or teaching or writing or creating an online program, all those things, right? Not necessarily because you want to leave what you're currently doing, but because you wonder if you've spent, the last few decades learning something that could really have a positive impact on others. If that's you, I've created something special for you. And it's a deeper dive into this concept. I created and taught a masterclass, which people freaking loved, called Optionality is the New Job Security. It's a masterclass for accomplished leaders who want to explore more what's possible with what they know. And it's awesome. We go deeper into this subject, but we talk about how your experience, your wisdom, your perspective, your reputation, all those things, all the things you've been working hard on could actually become assets that will allow you to create more optionality through exploring things like coaching, speaking, consulting, online training, and other opportunities. It's a great masterclass. People have been loving it. And here's the thing. You can go find out more about it at mitchmatthews.com/options. And I will say it's $27. We charge $27 for this masterclass, but because you're a Dream Think doer, I want to give you a coupon code to make it free. So go to mitchmatthews.com/options and plug in the coupon code DTD, abbreviation for a Dream Think Do, right? DTD gift. All right. No space. DTD gift. And you'll get the masterclass for free. If you've been enjoying this idea of optionality and maybe the thought of having more impact or creating more income, or maybe just even on a different front, somebody said, oh my gosh, you should be a coach, or somebody said, oh, you should teach that. Have you ever thought about being a speaker? This masterclass is for you, because it will truly allow you to take some specific steps into optionality in a whole new way, especially to take those things you're passionate about and the people that you're passionate about, and to take a next step and to truly plant some seeds for optionality. All right. Now, here's the thing. If that's not you, then don't worry about it. Don't even give it a second thought. But if it is, go to mitchmatthews.com/options and use the code DTD gift and get that masterclass for free. I can't wait for you to join in and we take a deeper dive into this subject. All right. So here's the deal though. As we're wrapping this thing up, I want you to be thinking about what's something you could do this week, something specific, big or small, that you could do to start creating more optionality, right? What's something you could start today, start building, experimenting with, growing, creating, that could make for more optionality tomorrow? Think about that. What if you didn't have to wait for somebody to pick you? What if you didn't have to wait for somebody to give you permission to move forward? What if you created more optionality, right? Because here's the thing. Again, creating more optionality isn't because something's wrong in your life. When you create optionality, it's because you want more ways for things to go right, right? New doors, new possibilities, new experiences. The goal isn't more choices. The goal is greater freedom through having options. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I want for you. That's why I feel like there's no accident that you listened to this particular episode, because I love this thought for you. The thought of having more options, living in optionality, the intentional creation of more options. So when you dream about having some more freedom through options. When you think, what's one meaningful thing that you could start doing, creating, experimenting with, and then do, right? Think about something you could start this week that would plant some seeds of optionality, big or small. Take some action. And I can't wait to hear where it takes you. And here's the thing. You can go to mitchmatthews.com/466. This is episode 466. And leave me a comment. Let me know what's something specific, big or small, that you're going to do to start planting some seeds for optionality. I can't wait to see where this takes all of us, because I love the idea of all of us living in more freedom from the options that we're creating. That's what I want for you. I can't wait to hear where it takes all of us. All right. So let me know. Go to mitchmatthews.com/466 and let me know what you're going to start doing. And hey, if you thought of somebody that might need this episode, that might enjoy this episode, I want you to send it to them and invite them in. Say, hey, let's create some optionality together, because this process is a whole lot of fun, but it's a whole lot better when you get to do it with somebody else. So invite somebody in, and then let me know. Let me know what you're up to. Let me know what you're doing. Let me know where you're creating more optionality in your life. Sound good? I'll tell you what, hey, speaking of optionality, we're actually going to take a little bit of a break. We've been going hard for 4 months. So we're going to take a couple of weeks off. But know that when we're back, oh my gosh, we've got some more deep dives and got some great interviews for you. So can't wait to get those to you. But until we connect again, you know what I'm going to say. I love you, and keep bringing your awesome, because the world, it needs you. Talk soon.